Ma'am, can you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name for the court recorder?
Linda Murray, Linda Murray.
Thank you. And ma'am, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
If you could do me a favor when you testify and speak up very loud, because I have to hear you, but also the attorneys have to hear your answers. If you can do that for me?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Murray, if you could tell us, have you been married?
Yes.
And who has your husband been?
Pardon?
Who's your husband?
Oh, Hussein Murray.
Okay. And how long have you been married?
54 years.
Do you have any children?
Yes.
How many children do you have?
3.
Any grandchildren?
Yes.
Were you residing in a home with your husband?
Yes.
What was the address of the home that you'd been residing with your husband?
3730 Newcastle Drive.
Okay.
Right.
Is that located in the city of Rochester Hills in Oakland County, Michigan?
Yes.
How long ago did you purchase that house?
1999.
Okay. And you've been living there ever since?
Yes.
Was your husband employed at the time of his passing?
Yes.
And can you tell us how he was employed?
He was owner of a jewelry store and a pawn shop.
Okay. And what were the names of that jewelry store, and then tell me the name of the pawn shop?
The jewelry store was Gold and Glitter, Inc., and the pawn shop was Hamtramck Pawn Brokers.
Did he own those together at a certain location?
Yes.
And what is that location?
It's 10,000 Joseph Campbell in Hamtramck.
Okay. And as far as the physical layout, are they in the same building together, or they're separated?
No, same building.
And how long has your husband owned those stores?
Since 1995. I
Okay.
think.
Would he go to the stores himself to operate them?
Yes?
And did he go on a regular basis?
Yes.
What was your husband's routine for going to the stores?
He'd get up in the morning, we would have breakfast, and he would get ready and go to the store around 12 o'clock.
I noticed a pause. This is very tough. There's no one here who doesn't appreciate this testimony is tough. If you need to pause, let the judge know. If it gets emotional, it's perfectly understandable, okay?
Okay.
So try to focus on my questions and try to focus on the answers if that helps at all.
Okay.
What was the store hours, if you know them?
They were 9:30 until 6:30.
And are they open Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday?
Monday through Saturday.
And when he would go to his business, is there a car that he would drive?
Yes, an Audi.
Okay, and what year Audi, if you know?
2011.
And had what color was the Audi?
Black.
Would he drive that Audi back and forth on a regular basis?
Yes.
Would he park that Audi any place specifically when he was home?
Yes, in the driveway.
Okay. What kind of driveway do you have at that residence?
We have a circular driveway.
Okay. And do you know where he would park that Audi when he would be at his businesses?
Normally, it would be on the side of the business on Yemen Street.
Okay. And that's an area that's visible to the public?
Yes.
Okay. When he would work at his businesses, was he a hands-on person, or would he work behind the scenes?
No, it was hands-on.
And do you have other family members who have worked at those businesses with him?
Yes.
Okay. The residence itself, can you describe the layout of your house on Newcastle?
It's a colonial, 2 floors, 4 bedrooms, 3 bath.
And where was the master bedroom located?
Upstairs,
Okay.
toward the front of the house.
Does the house have a basement?
Yes,
And how would you describe the basement? Is it finished, partially finished, or unfinished?
it's partially finished.
Do you have a garage?
Yes,
Is the garage attached or unattached?
attached.
Do you have a vehicle that you would drive?
Yes,
Where would your vehicle be parked?
in the garage.
Now, is there any type of security system that you have at that residence?
A ring on the front door and by the garage door.
Okay. And that's a camera that would record stuff?
Yes,
And it would record audio as well as video?
yes,
Ring cameras have a lot of different setups. Is it a setup where if there was a notification, you could view the notification from your personal phone?
yes,
And you're familiar with how that system worked?
yes,
Did you have any type of security alarm separate from the Ring system?
yes, guardian alarm.
And what type of alarm was that? Meaning, do they monitor if there's a break-in or you had a panic button?
Yeah, a panic button and they monitor, yeah, if there's a break-in. If the alarm, false alarm, if you don't put the right code.
Okay. Does the house have any type of safe inside?
No,
Your husband, would he ever take large amounts of money home from the business and store it at your residence?
sometimes,
Was it something that you would be aware of?
yes,
On the days that we're talking about, the 10th and the 11th of October, were you aware of any special amounts of money being inside the residence?
no,
Did your family or your husband have any firearms?
yes,
Okay, did he have any handguns?
yes.
What kind of handgun did he have?
I believe it was a Glock,
And was it a gun that he would carry on him?
yes,
Would he carry it for work?
yes,
Would he carry it when he wasn't at work?
yes,
Was your husband right-handed or left-handed?
right-handed,
Okay. And did he have a holster for that gun?
yes,
Do you know where he would wear that holster on his person?
on the right side,
Okay. You've seen it many times before?
yes,
Okay. Do you have a handgun of your own?
no,
Now, as far as you indicated that you could get Ring notifications to your phone, you had a cell phone at the time?
yes,
And did your husband have a cell phone?
yes,
You would communicate to each other by the cell phone.
yes,
Let me direct your attention to the evening of October 10th, 2024. Do you recall the events of that evening?
yes.
Approximately 10 o'clock that evening, can you tell us if something unusual occurred?
Two gentlemen, Mr. Hernandez and Mr. The other one, they came to the door and said that they were DTE employees and that they were checking for a gas leak.
Okay, you were at home?
Yes,
Was your husband at home?
yes,
Was anybody else at home?
no,
Was anybody else living in the residence, apart from yourself and your husband, on October 10th, a
No.
full-time residence?
no,
Did you have any type of dogs that would alert to people that were at your residence?
no.
Okay, how was it that you first knew that somebody was at your door on October 10th at 10 p.m.?
I had the ring gave me a notification on my phone.
Okay, so the Ring notified through your phone,
Yes,
and did you look at your phone?
yes,
Now, who went to the door that day?
my husband.
Okay, and how did you tell him somebody was at the door, or did he hear it himself?
No, he heard the ring make the notification, but I told him that there was someone at the door.
Okay, and where were you when you told him that?
I was upstairs by the master bedroom looking down onto the hallway where the front door is.
Okay, and where was your husband when you told him that? Was he also upstairs?
No, he was in the family room on his way to the front door.
Okay, so you yelled it downstairs to him?
Yes,
Did you go back into the bedroom, or did you stay out where you could see what was happening?
and I stayed out.
Okay. Did you go downstairs, or did you stay upstairs?
I stayed upstairs.
To have the ability to see down, describe, stairwells are different in different houses. What kind of stairway did you have going upstairs?
In the front of the house where the master bedroom is, it was a curved stairway.
Okay. So you had no blockage of your view from upstairs to the front door?
Correct.
Okay, what did you see happen when your husband went to the front door?
They said that they were looking for a,
Objection to
Yes.
hearsay.
Let me redirect the question. We can't say the word "they."
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you know which person is saying what, if you don't, say, "I just heard," okay? So let me
Okay.
ask the question again. Did you hear your husband say anything when he went to the front door?
Yes.
And what did you hear your husband say?
He
Object to that hearsay.
Response.
It's not for the truth of the matter asserted, it's just that it was stated.
Thank you. I'm going to allow it. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
And what did you hear your husband say?
He asked him, he says, "Hello, can I help you?" And
Was there a response?
Mr. Hernandez says that they were looking for a gas leak
Okay.
in the neighborhood.
Okay, and was this through a closed door or an open door?
Open door.
Okay. And what did your husband respond to that?
He said, "There's a gas leak," and from upstairs, I said, "It's kind of late for someone to be coming to the door, isn't it?" And he didn't reply to me, but Mr. Hernandez said that they checked the neighbors to see if there was a gas leak, but they needed to check our house. And Mr. Hernandez wanted my husband to sign a clipboard that gave him permission to come in. But then I asked my husband, I said, "Do you have your gun?" And he didn't reply, but I know shortly after, Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Zawaka, he said that they left. They'll come back tomorrow.
Okay, let me stop you there. When that was said about a gas leak, had you smelled any gas in your residence prior to that?
No,
Okay. So that was the exchange at the front door.
correct.
Did they indicate about coming back the next day?
Yes.
And what was said and who said it to your husband?
Mr. Hernandez said that to my husband that they would come back the next day.
Okay. Did they give a time that they would be back?
No,
When the two individuals were on the porch, you were able to see that there was more than one individual on the porch?
correct.
Okay. Could you see that because of the Ring camera, or could you see it because of where you were standing, or both?
I could see Mr. Hernandez from where I was standing, and I could see both of them through the Ring camera.
Okay. So, at that point in time, the doors closed?
Yes,
Okay. Do you typically have your doors locked at night?
yes.
Did you have any discussion with your husband about what had just happened?
I was curious as to why they were looking for a gas leak when I didn't smell anything.
Okay. Did either you, or if you're aware, your husband call DTE that evening to see if there were any crews in the area?
No,
Okay. Did you notify anybody else in your family about what had just happened?
no,
Do you go to bed that evening like you typically do?
yes,
Okay. Do you wake up in the morning?
yes.
Okay. On the night of October 10th, do you know where your husband's car was parked?
On the side of the driveway by the garage door.
Okay. And is that an area that's visible to the public?
Yes,
In the morning of October 11th, did your husband leave the residence at any time between that evening and the morning of October 11th?
no,
To your knowledge, the car was not moved between October 10th and October 11th?
October 11th, I had a doctor's appointment, and he had to move his car further down the driveway into the circular driveway so I could get my car out
Okay. And then he parked it in the driveway?
in the circular driveway.
Did you go to your doctor's appointment?
Yes,
And approximately what time did you return from your doctor's appointment?
about 10.
Okay. Did your husband accompany you, or did you go by yourself to the doctor's appointment?
By myself.
What was your husband's typical routine about going to work? What time would he leave to go?
Around 12 o'clock noon.
Was he staying there for any return of the DTE people?
No.
Okay. What happened after you had returned from the doctor's appointment?
I went to make breakfast, and my husband was watching TV, I believe. And yeah, normal routine.
Was there again somebody who came to the front door?
Yes.
What time would you say approximately that was?
10, 11
In the morning or at night?
in the morning.
Okay. And how was it that you first became aware that somebody was at your front door?
The ring camera alerted me.
Okay. And you received a ring notification?
Yes,
Did your husband go to the front door?
yes.
Where did you go when your husband went to the front door?
I was in the hallway behind him.
Okay. So you were near the front door also?
Yes,
How far would you say you were from the front door when he approached it?
10 feet.
Can you tell us what you remember happening when you're at the front door?
My husband saw them again and recognized them from the night before. And Mrs. Hernandez gave him the clipboard to sign. I didn't see if he signed it or not. And they came in.
Okay.
And they said that they had.
When you say they came in,
I'm sorry.
were there 2 people, 3 people? How many people came in?
Oh, yeah, 2 people, Mr. Hernandez and Mrs. Zuazo.
And did you recognize them as the same people who were there the night before?
Yes,
And do you see those people in the courtroom today?
yes.
Could you please individually point to each one and identify an article of clothing that he's wearing?
That's Mr. Hernandez there with the beard to the left of the judge. And Mr.
Let me stop you right there. Your Honor, may the record reflect this witness's identified defendant Hernandez?
The record will reflect that defendant Hernandez has been identified.
And the other individual, do you recognize the second
Yes,
individual?
Mr. Zuago is at the end of the table.
Your Honor, may the record reflect this witness has identified defendant Zuazo.
The record will reflect that the defendant Zuazo has been identified as well. Thank you.
When you're at that front door area, you said they had the clipboard. Did they have any type of other indicia that they were with DT that you remember?
They had badges that said that they were with DTE, and they had the reflective vests, the yellow one.
Okay. And do you recall whether they were wearing masks or not when they were at the front door?
Yes, they were wearing masks.
What happened after Mr. Defendant Hernandez had shown the clipboard to your husband?
They came into the house, Mr. Hernandez and Mrs. Zuago came into the house, and my husband was going to show them where the basement was.
And why was it, do you know what they had indicated about what they were looking for when they were back the second time?
They needed to check the...
Objection today is going to have the speaker identify if the witness knows, rather than a collective day.
Thank you. Can you please have a rephrase?
Yes. Was anything said about what they were searching for the second time?
They were going...
No, it's a yes or no question.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and who made the statement about what they were searching for the second time?
Mr. Hernandez.
Okay, and what do you recall him saying the second time?
He had to check something on the furnace.
Okay, and do you know where your furnace is located?
Yes,
And where was your furnace located?
in the basement.
Okay. What happened after they had said something about checking the furnace?
My husband went to go show them where the basement was.
Okay, and tell us the path that your husband took in the house to go towards the basement.
From the front door, he walked about 15 feet toward the kitchen, and then he turned left and went down the hallway to the basement door.
Okay. And who, if anybody, went with your husband?
Both Mr. Hernandez and Mrs. Zuago went with him.
Okay. What happened as your husband approached the door leading down to the basement?
Mr. Zuago went into the laundry room. I thought he would look for the gas leak by the dryer, but he didn't. And Mr. Hernandez said that he forgot his meter, and he had to go get it from the truck.
Okay, and at that point in time, had anybody started to go down into the basement?
No,
Okay, did Mr. Hernandez go someplace different after he made that statement?
I don't know exactly where he went. He went to toward the front door.
Okay, and your husband was still there with the defendant Zuazo at that point?
Yes,
And how long would you say it was after defendant Hernandez walked away that he returned? How much time do you think went by?
a minute, less than a minute.
Okay. When he returned, did you notice any type of meter in his hand or anything different than you had seen before?
No.
What happened after Mr. Defendant Hernandez had returned?
My husband and Mr. Zuago started going down into the basement, and Mr. Hernandez was behind them.
Okay, so your husband was leading the way down the stairs.
Uh-huh.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And behind him was Defendant Zuazo,
Yes.
and behind him was Defendant Hernandez.
Yes.
And where did you go when they proceeded down the stairs?
Went back into the kitchen to finish making breakfast.
Okay. Now, does that door to the is there a door to the downstairs?
Yes.
As best you remember, was that door, did it remain open or did somebody close it?
It was closed.
Okay. And from where you positioned yourself in the kitchen, how far would you say you were from that door leading downstairs at that point?
About 6 feet, 10 feet maybe.
Okay. Not very far?
No, not very far.
Okay. Now, your husband, knowing we all have different manners of speaking. Okay, in your relationship and your experience with your husband, is your husband a soft talker, a loud talker, a normal tone talker? How would you describe his volume?
He's very loud.
Okay. When your husband and the two defendants go down into the basement, do you hear your husband say anything?
No.
Do you hear anybody else say anything?
No.
Do you hear any type of commotion down in the basement?
No.
And of course, as someone who's not great at hearing anymore, the natural question is, how is your hearing?
Diminished somewhat, but not.
Okay. And you didn't hear anything with the time period they were downstairs?
No.
Do you remain at the kitchen table the entire time that everybody was downstairs?
Yes.
How much time would you say, as best you can recollect, because we know you're not looking at your watch and timing things, in your best estimate, how much time do you think they were downstairs before somebody came up the stairs?
I'm going to say about maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. When somebody finally comes up in that 10, 15 minute period of time, who is the first person up the stairs?
Mr. Hernandez.
Okay. And where does Mr. Hernandez go once he's up the stairs?
In the hallway by the basement door.
Okay. Does Mr. Defendant Zualzo come up the stairs?
Yes.
How much time delay after Defendant Hernandez is up is it until Defendant Zualzo appears?
Seconds. He was right behind them.
Okay. What happens once both defendants are up the stairs?
Mr. Hernandez asks me, where is the safe? And I said, we don't have one. And then he said, where is the jewelry? And I said, in the bank at the safety deposit box.
Okay, when he says this, because you're seated some distance away from
No.
the top of the stairs, did you stand up at that point?
Yes.
Okay. When you stood up, did you close the gap to the defendants, or did they close the gap on you?
I don't recall.
Okay. How close is Defendant Hernandez when he asks you, where is the safe?
The first time it was about a couple feet.
Okay. And what's the response after you indicate you don't have a safe and the jewelry is in a safety deposit box? What happens then?
He asks me, where is the money?
And when you say he, you're talking about
Mr. Hernandez.
Defendant Hernandez. Okay. What did you say about where is the money?
I said that all we have in the house is what I have in my purse and what my husband has in his pocket.
Okay. Do you recall how much cash approximately you had in your purse that morning?
About 300.
Okay. And your husband would also, as habit, carry cash on him?
Yes.
Would he carry, I mean, I hate to say a normal amount of cash, because normal can depend very much on who you are. How much cash would he usually have?
About 5,000.
Okay. Where did you have your cash that morning? Where did you keep it?
In my purse on the kitchen table.
Okay. And did you tell Defendant Hernandez the cash was in your purse?
Yes.
What did you see happen after you said your cash is in your purse?
Again, he asked me, where is the jewelry and where is the cash?
And what was your response then?
The same, that the jewelry wasn't in the house and we didn't have cash except what I told him.
Okay. And what happened next?
I started asking, where is my husband? Where is my husband? And I didn't get a response. And when Mr. Zuazo came up the stairs, I saw blood on his vest. And I started screaming. And Mr. Hernandez hit me in the face
Okay.
to shut me up.
When Defendant Hernandez hit you on the face, what side of the face did he strike you on?
The left.
Okay. Did you sustain an injury from that?
Yes.
Did you sustain an injury that required medical treatment later?
Yes.
It was a hard hit.
Yes.
What happened after you were struck?
He asked me, before he removed his hand from my mouth, he asked me if I would stop screaming. And I said yes. And he sat me at the kitchen table.
Okay. Did either of them respond to you about what your husband was doing downstairs?
No.
What happened then?
I take that what I just said back because I was asking where's my husband, and Mr. Zuago said he was sleeping.
Okay. What happens after Defendant Hernandez tells you to stop yelling and screaming?
He sits me at the kitchen table.
Okay. What happens to you while you're seated at the table?
He takes my watch off, my iPhone watch.
When you say he, again?
Mr. Hernandez, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then what happens? He takes your watch off?
Yes, he takes my watch off and puts it across the table where I could not reach it, and takes my cell phone and puts it in his pocket.
Okay. Then what happens?
Then he asks me if I have the car keys, and I said they're connected to my purse. So he takes the car keys to my car.
Okay. And what kind of car were you driving?
Infinity.
When you say he took the keys, is it keys on a fob? Is it just a fob? How do you describe that?
The keys were attached to my purse.
Okay. The keys themselves, did it have keys to the house on there, or was it just the car fob?
No, had the house key.
Okay. So you saw Defendant Hernandez take those items.
Yes.
Did you see anybody go through your purse?
Mr. Hernandez did.
Okay. And did you see him take cash from your purse?
Yes.
What happens after he's taken the cash from your purse?
That part's a little foggy, but I know that he taped up my legs together with duct tape, black duct tape, and my wrists together.
Okay. When you say he, don't. It's okay. It's natural. It's not natural to testify. It's natural to talk.
Mr. Hernandez.
Yes. Okay. And you said it was black duct tape.
Yes.
Was that duct tape that you had in your house?
No.
What parts of your body were taped up by Defendant Hernandez?
My ankles together and my wrists together.
Okay. Where was Defendant Zuazo when this was taking place?
He was upstairs in the master bedroom.
Okay. What happens after your duct tape?
Mr. Zuago was upstairs in the master bedroom, and I could hear the drawers hitting the floor. And then Mr. Hernandez was kind of nonchalant and opened one of the drawers in the kitchen, kind of looked at it and shut it. And Mr. Zuago came down the stairs from upstairs.
Again, we understand you're not timing things, but what's your best estimate how long Defendant Zuazo was upstairs before he returned from upstairs?
Minutes. It wasn't very long.
Okay. Can you describe to us, did you have some jewelry in your master bedroom?
Yes.
And where was that kept?
In the jewelry box.
Okay, and what type of jewelry did you have in your bedroom?
It was costume jewelry.
So the jewelry that was up there wasn't very valuable, is that fair to say?
Yes,
Did you later go into the master bedroom and see it being disheveled and things askew?
not that day, no.
Later you did?
Yes,
Okay. And were you missing jewelry?
yes,
Later in the investigation, past this day, do detectives from the sheriff's office end up showing you photographs of jewelry that was recovered?
yes,
And did you identify items of jewelry that were recovered that were yours?
yes,
And those items were missing after the 11th from your room?
yes.
When defendant Zualzo comes back downstairs, what happens next?
They're getting ready to leave, and they go into the garage. Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Zuago go, no they don't. They want me to put me in the closet. And I was standing up, but I couldn't move because of the bindings on my legs. So that he sat me back down in a chair.
And you know what I'm going to ask you now? Which he are we talking about?
Which what?
Which he
Oh,
sat you back
Mr.
down?
Hernandez.
Okay. And then what happened?
Mr. Hernandez sat me in the chair, and then they walked to the garage.
Okay. Can you hear the garage door open?
Yes,
Okay. How long would you say they were in the garage before the garage door was opening?
before it was opening,
How long do you think they spent in the garage before you could hear the garage door opening?
seconds.
Okay. And they departed at that point?
I think I didn't see him, but I think Mr. Hernandez searched the car.
Okay. After they exited the garage, did they come back into the residence?
No,
Prior to the dates of either the 10th or the 11th, had you ever seen defendant Hernandez or defendant Zuazo before?
no,
Prior to the dates of the 10th and the 11th, had either of them ever been inside your house?
no,
Inside your residence, did you have in the basement area any type of zip ties?
no,
After the 11th, was your husband's side firearm missing from the residence?
yes,
The Ring camera that was part of your residence, did you turn over that Ring camera video to the detectives?
yes,
Have you had an opportunity to review People's Exhibit number 1, those Ring camera videos?
yes,
Do they accurately reflect what was on those videos at the time?
yes,
Your Honor, the people would move to publish People's Exhibit number 1, which is the Ring cameras videos.
Is it stipulated to? Okay.
I have no objection, Your Honor.
Okay. That can be published, thank you.
Thumb drive.
went in the restaurant, so then she thought Rita was her. So
It's DTE. DTE. Kind of late, when you guys will be coming around. I don't know DTE, I don't know, be careful, I am.
Well, we just got a question. Have you guys had, are you Mr. Murray?
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Nestle?
We
We gotta check your back, you have the house for the meter? Well, thank you.
On the seat. Yeah. Hello, I'm coming. Hello.
Is this the right?
Yes.
Have to go home. You know, I didn't want to bother you guys for late, but we had to check the outside.
Yeah, I understand. I love the sketch. You work on a sketch.
Listen, I get it. How you doing today, sir? I'm all right. So, you want to read? Just to give us consent to check the inside of the home. So what we have to do is we have to check for like proximity.
And Mrs. Murray, just to finish up, the taking of your items from your residence that day, that was against your will and against your consent?
Yes, against my will.
When you were struck, that was against your will?
Yes,
And being restrained, that was also against your will?
yes.
I don't have any other questions, Judge.
Thank you. Cross-exam.
Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
Mr. Petrofessa, the prosecutor, asked you a question similar, but I just want to make sure that the record is clear. So you were asked if you had ever met Mr. Hernandez or Mr. Zuazo prior to that date. Do you remember being asked that question?
Yes,
And you answered no. Do you remember that?
yes,
Okay. So you have been referring to the two people that were in your house as Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Zuazo. Were those names that were provided to you from the prosecutor or from the police department? Those weren't names that you came up with yourself. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay. So you were given the names of Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Zuazo, correct?
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Cross-exam.
Thank you. Mrs. Murray, my name is Michael McCarthy. I represent Joshua Zuazo. I have some questions to ask you here this morning regarding your testimony. And if I do not make myself clear, please tell me that, and then I will rephrase the question, okay?
Yes,
Now, we just watched the ring video of what occurred on the night of the 10th of October. And you were, as I understand your direct testimony, but you correct me if I'm wrong, you were upstairs on the second floor with a good view of the front door where your husband answered the door. Is that correct?
yes,
And so you were able to see one person in the doorway. Is that correct?
yes,
And you didn't see a second person there, correct?
no,
And but you've had an opportunity since this incident occurred to review your own ring video, correct?
yes,
And during the course of the investigation that was conducted by the Rochester Hills Police Department, the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, you've come to have an understanding about who it is that is charged in this case with the crimes that were committed at your home on the 10th day or the 11th day of October, correct?
Yes.
So in just following up on the question was just asked by Mr. Hernandez's attorney regarding your identification of individuals, you didn't know Mr. Zuazo at all, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't see him the day or the night before this incident took place, correct?
Only through the Ring camera.
Right, but you didn't see, in that instance, that night, you would agree that the person who's shown in the Ring camera, the second person, not the person that's at the door, but the person in the background, is pretty fully, his face is completely covered, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you can't make an identification of Mr. Zuazo for the night of October the 10th because you didn't see enough of the individual's face to make an identification, correct?
Correct.
And what you do know now, you have information that leads you to believe that Mr. Zuazo is the person that was present that night because you've reviewed Ring video and you've had many interviews with representatives of the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, and also the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, correct?
Yes.
And you've gained this knowledge that you've brought to the court today, this ability to speak and make identifications because of some information that's been provided to you regarding identification, correct?
Can you repeat that?
Yes, you've been able to speak with confidence this morning regarding who the individuals that came to your home is or were because of the fact that during the course of the investigation that's gone on since October the 11th, you've gained a lot of knowledge from the information provided not only by yourself to the law enforcement officials, but also information you received back during interviews, correct?
Some
Yes.
information.
Okay. You didn't know either man's name, right?
No.
Before the investigation was conducted, and then information from the Sheriff's Department, the Prosecutor's Office, Police Department, that was provided to you to give you that knowledge, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in the part of your testimony regarding October the 10th, or 11th rather, you identified Mr. Zuazo as, or this person that you have identified as Mr. Zuazo is the person who went upstairs into the master bedroom, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you were seated at the kitchen table at that time, correct?
Yes.
And that was before or after your ankles and your wrists were bound with tape?
Before.
Before. Okay, so then after that second individual came downstairs, then you were bound up. Is that correct?
During the time that Mrs. Zuazo went upstairs, in between the time Mr. Hernandez bound my legs and wrists.
Okay. And going to this identification thing one more time, you would agree that Mr. Hernandez, who is seated at the council table there, is a person of fairly unique physical characteristics, correct? A very large man.
Yes.
Okay. And you saw he was wearing, or rather, this person who came to your door on October the 10th during the evening hours at 10 or 10:30 at night, he was wearing a small mask, correct?
Mr. Who?
The person that you've identified to be Mr. Hernandez.
Oh, Mr.
When
Hernandez.
he came to the door that night, was wearing a rather small mask, just the kind of a mask somebody might wear in COVID times.
No,
correct?
Mr. Hernandez wore a respirator type mask. So, a heavy mask.
During the night of October the 10th?
Yes.
So it's your testimony that the same person that came to the door on the night of the 10th was the person who came to the door on the morning of the 11th, correct?
Repeat that?
the person that was knocking on the door, or
Yes.
ringing the doorbell, whichever it was, that came on the night of the 10th, was the same person who came to the door on the morning of the 11th,
Yes.
correct? And it's the same distinctive sized individual, correct?
Yes,
Okay. You would agree that the second man does not have that same distinctive physical characteristic, correct?
correct.
He's more of a normal sized person. He's not exceedingly tall or short, correct?
Correct.
Just a normal height. And his physical stature in terms of his weight, pretty average, correct?
Yes,
Okay. So not as easy to make an identification of the second man as it was to make the identification of this very uniquely physically characterized individual that you've identified to be Mr. Hernandez, correct? Let me break that down. It's easier to identify a person who's huge,
yes,
right? You don't see people like that every day, right?
right,
And this person comes to your house 2 days in a row, right?
correct.
And you saw enough of him on the first night to know that he was the same person on the second morning, correct?
Correct.
The second man, not like that, correct? You can't make that identification and say for sure that the man that was there the night before is the same man that was there during the day of the 11th, correct?
As far as I can recollect glancing at Mr. Zuago on the night of the 10th, somehow I had a glance of him. He was the one with the light mask, the small mask,
On the night of the 10th.
of the 10th.
Okay, thank you. Upstairs, you could just hear footsteps, correct?
Yes,
When you were in the kitchen. And yet, you're able to testify today that those footsteps were up in the master bedroom. Is that correct?
yes,
But you were in the kitchen, you couldn't see that, correct? You couldn't see the activity that was going on upstairs.
I could hear it. I couldn't see it.
I got that, and I understand that you could hear it, but the question is, you couldn't see it, correct?
Correct.
All right. And so you learned later, through the investigation and through your own return to your home, that things were in disarray in the master bedroom of your home, correct?
Correct.
Now, is it possible that you made a connection between what you heard on the day, 11th of October, and what you saw on the day that you were able to return to your home after being hospitalized, and came to the conclusion that it was Mr., or at least the second man, who was up in the master bedroom because you saw the damage there?
Correct.
All right. Is it a possibility that you put those two things together, what you heard downstairs and what you saw later, to make the testimony that you gave today to be that I heard him up in the master bedroom?
Yes.
Thank you. And I want to make sure you understood that question. You put those two things together, right? You heard the noise on the 11th. You saw the damage on a subsequent date, correct?
Yes.
And you put those two things together and you came to the conclusion, oh, he was up in the master bedroom while that was going on, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you. Now, you've already testified in a direct examination that you didn't know either one of these two people, correct, before this incident?
I have a hard time hearing.
Oh,
you.
I'll speak up. You've already testified on direct examination that you never encountered either one of the two individuals that came into your home that day, correct?
Correct.
And this was a very upsetting experience, correct?
Correct.
And you had concerns while it was going on about what had happened to your husband, correct?
Correct.
And you were screaming at one point, according to your direct testimony, correct?
Correct.
And then you yourself were struck by who you identified to be Mr. Hernandez, correct?
Correct.
And you sustained a serious enough injury that it required your hospitalization for a period of time.
Correct.
Would it be fair to say that this experience in your life is the most upsetting experience you have ever had?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just briefly, Your Honor, just want to follow up on just a couple things that Mr. McCarthy had brought up. He indicated something about your conclusion that defendant Zuazo was going through your bedroom while you were down in the kitchen. Did you hear that line of questioning?
Yes.
For that conclusion, did defendant Hernandez ever go upstairs?
No.
Well, okay, so that's how you draw the conclusion, is that?
Correct.
Okay. Also, Mr. McCarthy had asked something about identification with Mr. Zuazo. After defendant Hernandez or defendant Zuazo come up from the basement, do you have any recollection of defendant Zuazo's mask being in a different place than when it was when he went down the stairs?
My recollection is, I think so,
And what do you think you saw?
that the mask was missing.
And that it wasn't in place when he was back in front of you after coming up the stairs?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any doubt in your mind that defendant Zuazo was one of the two individuals in your house that day?
No.
Do you have any doubt in your mind that defendant Hernandez was one of those two individuals who were in your house that day?
No.
I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
May I just follow up on that one question regarding the mask? Mrs. Murray, as to the mask, you just testified now on direct examination that perhaps Mr. Zuazo's mask was not on his face when he came back upstairs?
Correct. I think so.
Did you ever give any information along those lines to the investigators from the Sheriff's Department?
Recently.
Recently? Okay, and how recently was that?
Last week.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Anyone else in this witness? Thank you. And thank you. You can be excused.
Thank you.